everyone, it's Jennifer from Sparkle Splatter. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful spring spray wreath. This is a really fast and easy project that only takes a few minutes to make. We're simply going to be creating this lovely spray of flowers down the side, and you can use some things you may already have on hand. So let's get started. For this project, you'll need a wreath form. I'm going to be using this wreath form that I found that's made of branches, and they're kind of like tied together, but a grapevine wreath, something where you don't mind the wreath showing, because we're just going to be doing a spray of flowers down one side. So something like styrofoam, if you want to use that, or if that's what you have on hand, just wrap it in some ribbon to cover it, but we're only going to be putting it on one side. So something like a grapevine wreath, or this one that I have of branches, makes a great wreath form to use. You'll also need a glue gun, a pair of scissors, a pair of wire cutters. You'll need some silk flowers of your choice, and you'll want to get a variety of focal flowers. So these circular hydrangeas I have here are going to be our focal flowers. And then you'll need some linear flowers. So this is, I think it's supposed to be delphinium or larkspur or something like that. But see how it grows in a line? That's going to form kind of the spray that we're going to be creating. You'll also need some ribbon. I'm going to be sticking with this kind of green, spring green lavender theme. So I found some grow green ribbon that works nicely for this and kind of matches the green of these flowers, the little leaves and stems. And this is 1.5 inch wide grow green ribbon. And I just have a spool of that. So let's get started. Before you begin, you'll want to prep your wreath. So I went ahead and just found a scrap piece of ribbon and put a little hanging loop. So that's going to serve as the top of our wreath, and you'll want to keep that in mind as you're adding all the pieces to it. Now I'm going to be putting a bow on mine, just a really simple little bow. But if you don't want to do that, you can skip this part. It's totally up to you. So I'm just going to take some of my ribbon and some scissors, and I'm just going to pull about 2 yards out and cut. Well, actually, I have about 2 yards left on this spool, so that works out perfectly. So I'm just going to cut the ribbon, cut it at an angle, and grow green ribbon cuts very, very nicely and cleanly. Some of the more satiny ribbons don't cut as neatly. They fray a little bit. Okay, so all I'm going to do is, at about the middle point of my ribbon, I'm going to tie a knot, just like that, okay? Then we're going to create a bow. This is kind of the base of our bow. So we're just going to make a loop, tie it around. The other thing that's nice about grow green is that it's double-sided, so you don't have to worry about your loops being inside out or not, okay? So all I'm simply doing is tying a bow, and we're going to neaten this up also and get the loops the exact size that we need them to be. See, I'm just kind of pulling them in a little bit. We don't need a very large bow. Okay, so I'm just fixing these loops here. Just getting them nice and neat and pretty. Okay. And it always just takes a moment to just neaten everything up a bit. Okay, so once you have the bow looking how you want it to look, and everything's shaped up and your tails are nice and neat, then what we're going to do, we're not going to cut the tails yet, we'll wait till the wreath is finished. Then we're going to glue the bow right onto the wreath. So again, locate where your hanging loop is, and you can even take, I have just a little scrap piece of yarn here. I'm just going to mark where that is, just so I'm constantly reminded of the very top of my wreath, okay? So just get a little bit of glue, squirt the back of that really well, very liberally, because you don't want it to fall off, okay? Then we're going to just stick it right on. Just kind of at, if this were a clock, at where 9 o'clock would be. Okay? And again, we're just going to cut those tails later. Okay, now we're ready to start building up the flowers of our wreath. Okay, so I'm going to slide this over. We're going to be putting our spray just down this one side. Okay, if you'd like to cover your wreath completely, definitely feel free to do whatever you like. Okay, so we have our wire cutters and our linear flowers and our focal flowers. So what we're going to do is just kind of start arranging everything and cutting as we go with the wire cutters. Now you can save these little bits for later if you want to kind of add a little bit to that. But we're just going to kind of follow the lines, the natural lines of our wreath. So we're just going to be gluing all of this in. But I wanted to position, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so you can see better. I'm just going to be, there we go. And I wanted to mention too, I like to use tin foil to put on the bottom of my glue gun to catch all the drips. It's cheap, it's easy, it's something you may already have on hand, and it doesn't melt, which is really important. Okay, so, and if you need to kind of bend these around, those line flowers, not gluing the tails, so we'll keep the tails well out of the way. Just kind of bending all this around. Cutting as we go, and you can make this as compact or as dramatic as you would like it to be. How big of a springy statement you want to make. And the mechanics here of these stems, don't worry about those for right now because we're going to be filling those in with the hydrangea. Okay, so we have, let's see, 2 of these left, so let's find a spot to kind of place them. I'm going to bend this a little just to make it mimic the lines. And we're just laying these in place for now. And then I think we need one down here at the bottom as well. So I'm just going to snip this, bend it around, and just tuck it into place. Okay, so now we have the spray. Now you can leave it as is and it looks gorgeous. I really like it that way. But we're going to go ahead and add the focal flowers next. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these flowers on, and then we'll go ahead and finish up by adding these little hydrangeas, and they'll kind of fill in a little bit as we go. Okay, so I went ahead and glued all of these linear flowers into place, and they look beautiful. It's very springy and kind of like just wild flowers just growing on a wreath. So these are on stems, and the way hydrangea grows in real life is kind of like this. It kind of has one stem, and then there's these kind of branches that come out. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of take this apart a little bit because I don't want it to be, this is not a very big wreath, and I don't want it to be gigantic kind of globs of flowers. So I'm going to cut these apart a little bit. Next, we'll kind of just do the same thing we did with the other flowers. We're just going to tuck them in where they're needed and just kind of filling in those spaces. And our bow is getting slightly covered up, and that's perfectly fine. So we're just kind of filling those in. So I really like that placement. I'm going to keep that as is and go ahead and glue everything down. Okay, everything is glued into place. It looks beautiful. So the last thing we need to do is just trim these tails. So I'm going to go about, I don't know, halfway down to the wreath here, and we can always adjust them later. And actually hanging your wreath up will be the real determining factor. So you might want to hang your wreath up first. I'm actually going to trim this one a hair shorter because of the one on the other side, okay? So our wreath is complete, and it looks really beautiful, very springy, and that's it. And it only took a few minutes to make, and now you have a gorgeous spring wreath. And you can actually carry this on into summer as well. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Sparkle and Splatter video updates. Thanks again.